What's going on, guys, and welcome back to the channel. So today we have a special video. We were talking with Anastasis as he went 6-2 in MBT's most recent tournament. There's 256 players, top 16 cut. Unfortunately, 6-2 with the tiebreakers he had wasn't quite good enough. 7th through 25th tied, and he was that unlucky number 25. But he went 6-2 with Pure Mekk-Knights, so that's pretty darn good. And we're gonna go ahead and jump into the deck profile in just a second. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing to it. We're working on some more how to beat videos like Infernobles, Prank Kids, Zodiac. We did already do how to beat Virtual World, so make sure you go and check that one out. Without further ado, let's get into that deck list. So we see the Mekk-Knight monster lineup. I mean, it's really nothing special. It's pretty standard. We see the 3 purple, 3 blue, 3 gear suit, double indigo, 1 red, 1 yellow, and then there is the World Legacy World Chalice. I'm pretty sure that's for like the when you rip your opponent's like hand extra deck, all that going first. Don't quote me on that. I'm not an expert on the deck by any means. I do have a little notes that he sent me to talk about and to point out, but I think that's why that one's there. So purple, obviously, probably the best Mekk-Knight. Super strong because, well, you can make other Mekk-Knights dodge your opponent's effects by banishing them. You can search them out by banishing. You know, it's just purple's probably the best Mekk-Knight one. I mean, you know, he plays the deck. He's going to watch this video. He can let me know if I'm wrong on that. But blue sky, obviously really good if it's special summoned. However many cards your opponent has. So ideally, if they have 2 cards in a column, because most people forget about columns, you get to search out 2 Mekk-Knight monsters with different names. Then obviously your Gearsu, which Gearsu actually is the neat interaction on being able to make a Galatea on its own, which also means you can get Dingirsu and get the free send. Like, Gearsu is just pretty strong, and the fact that you can search it out with your blue, with your purple, with, you know, like cards in the deck. It's just really good, and it helped boost the deck. So 3 Gearsu, 2 indigo only, basically used to just move all your Mekk-Knights around, because cards like World Legacy Secret, if your opponent's monster's in the same column as your Mekk-Knight, its effects are negated. So indigo being able to move your monsters around so that way you can just negate your opponent's effects that way is really, really strong. The 1 red, 1 yellow, popping monsters and popping spells. Additionally, they have like pretty good stats, I think, without actually seeing them on hand. I believe one's 2800 attack and one's 2800 defense, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember exactly on red, but I believe yellow's 22 attack, 28 defense. And then we get into our hand traps. So we got 3 Ash, 3 Nibiru, 3 Gamma with the 1 driver, and then towards the bottom you'll see 3 Infinite Impermanence. He wanted to play hand traps that he felt were going to hit the top decks, the decks he would see most common, and then his side deck would handle the rest. And the decks he was kind of expecting were Virtual World, Dragon Link, Infernoble, and Invoke Dogmatica, which really is not too surprising to expect these decks. And Gamma, Ash, and Imperm hit all of them relatively well. Obviously, you know, your Dragon Links, your Infernobles, and even Virtual World to a point, you pretty much need 2 hand traps, and that's why he's playing 12. But Nibiru doesn't really hit Invoke Dogmatica because they make Makaba by the 4th summon. But other than that, the rest of your cards, like especially Nibiru versus the rest of those matchups, if you pair it up with like Imperm or Gamma, it's really, really strong. So I do like his hand trap lineup. We see 3 World Legacy Memories, basically special summoning a Mekk-Knight from your deck, and it pairs up with Secrets really nice, because again, you can special summon it and then put it in a column to negate one of your opponent's card effects. The 1 World Legacy Secession, obviously basically like a Monster Reborn that's searchable off your lib, and I do think it's part of that combo with World Chalice, so that's obviously going to be a, you know, pretty strong card. World Legacy Key, when it's activated, you can target one of your banished Mekk-Knight monsters or World Legacy cards, add it to your hand, negate any opponent's trap effects that activate in the same column. So it's kind of like Secret, but instead of negating monster effects, you negate trap effects. And once you start to pile on these cards, it makes it really hard for your opponent to do a whole lot. The 1 Harpy's Feather Duster for back row, but he obviously wasn't expecting too much back row. That's why he doesn't have it more mained. 12 hand traps not always going to be enough, so 3 Dark Ruler no more, because Mekk-Knights can kind of pick apart your board anyway. Yeah, you don't get to deal damage, but you can take a really good established control of the board presence, so dealing damage isn't the end-all be-all. Dark Ruler no more, turning off your opponent's board, especially like a dinosaur board, and then you just tear apart their board and make them, pay for it. Obviously, if they open miscellaneous source, it's a little bit of a different story because they're just not going to be affected. But moving forward, we do have our World Legacy secrets, and like we said, negate any opponent's monster effect that activates in the same column as a Mekk-Knight monster you control. It actually came up in a ruling in one of our tournaments, and by tournaments I mean Nerd Night Gaming. There's a link in the description below. We play for some high-end cards, low-end cards, cash tournaments, free tournaments. Every Wednesday we have a free online local, things like that. But there was a ruling where he had a Mekk-Knight monster, or his opponent had a monster, summoned it, the effect, and then he used secrets to summon a Mekk-Knight into that column to negate it, but then his opponent chained, I think it was Droplet, to send his card to the graveyard, and then he was trying to say that his card would resolve anyway, but it doesn't because it activated on the field in that column that the Mekk-Knight monster is. So it was just kind of a little complicated interaction, but keeping in mind, if a card activates on the field, it resolves on the field, and it doesn't need to stay on the field to be negated by the secrets, because it's still activated in that same column, because all cards activate and resolve in the same column that they're played in. The 3 Imperms, and then 1 World Legacy Whispers. So essentially you don't really use the first effect. I mean, you can boost one of your Mekk-Knights by 1,000 attack and defense, which, I mean, it can come up by all means. I mean, it's 1,000 attack and defense, like that could come up, but the main reason you use it is because this one negates any spell effect that activates in the same column. So if you can set up like your key, your whispers, and a secrets, and then just start like piling on your Mekk-Knight monsters, you're going to completely shut down your opponent, and that's obviously really, really strong. I'm going to assume that despite the 3 secrets and the 1 whispers, that he still opted to go second, because 12 hand traps, Dark Ruler no more, and just Mekk-Knights in general, like that just screams I want to go second. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that he is in fact wanting to go second. If you're curious on his matchups, they were 2 Tri-Brigade decks, 2 Virtual World, 1 Crusadia, 1 Prank Kid, 1 Madolche, and 1 Infernobles. I know he dropped it to Prank Kids because he said, well, it was probably the best Prank Kids player he's ever played against, and that deck can be tricky once they kind of start chain blocking and rolling, and if like a good pilot on that deck, they know the deck, it's going to be tricky. And I guess not really knowing how Mekk-Knights fare against them, I can't go into more detail on that, but I know with certain other decks, Prank Kids can just present a lot of issues if you're not prepared for it. And I do believe, but don't quote me, that his other loss is one of the Virtual Worlds. Again, he will probably see this video and can comment down below and let me know if I got that right or not. I don't know if I saw it in our group chat or not, but I do believe it was one of the Virtual Worlds. So onto the extra deck. We see the Macabre, Elder Entity, and Tis, and the Nova. This is in case Invoke Dogmatica, sending Maximus. You send Nova, you get your Macabre, and you send the Antis, and you pop the Ecclesia or the Maximus. This deck, you'd probably pop the Maximus, just because of 3k defense, and you can use your main deck monsters to attack over Ecclesia anyway, since it's only protected from extra deck monsters. We see the Galatea and the Degirsu. That's because, well, Mekk-Knight Orcus Girsu. It's a free, basically. Same with the Link Spider. That can help there with the token. You get also Nibiru token and creating your columns. So Link Spider is good that way. 3 Lib, 3 Morningstar, really the MVPs of the deck. Your Lib can search out like your Secession or your World Legacy cards, and then your Mekk-Knight of the Morningstar. So if people don't know, if this card's Link Summon, you can discard a Mekk-Knight monster or World Legacy card, add a World Legacy card from your deck to your hand. So it's a searcher. That's really good. And then you can only use this effect once per turn, but if your Mekk-Knight monster battles a monster in a different column, your monster can't be destroyed by that battle, and you take no battle damage. So not only is it a searcher, it also offers a little bit of protection, which is really good. There is the 1 Mekk-Knight Supreme, Spectrum Supreme. So It can attack your opponent directly if it's the only card in its column, and obviously you can use your indigo to move cards around and make it be the only one in its column. If this card in the extra monster zone points to no monsters, it can't be destroyed by card effects. So again, if you can, I mean, you're giving up 3 zones then in that case, so it can be a little heavy, especially as the game goes on. But it offers a nice little effect where it can't be destroyed by card effects. Also, your opponent can't target it. Key thing being, your opponent can't target it. Some cards neither player can, and it actually can work against you. But you can send one other card you control in this card's column to the graveyard, special summon a Mekk-Knight monster from your deck in defense. So you have one in its column, and then you send it to special summon from your deck. And obviously that's good because you can set up your columns, your boards, your negates with your whispers, with your key, with your secrets, all those kinds of good things. You are playing a lot of high-level monsters, so BLS Link obviously is a really good Link monster if you're playing those level 7 and 8 monsters or higher. And then one Crusadia Avermax. The card's just really strong, and no surprise to see it here whatsoever. Certain decks just really can't even out it. Onto his side deck. So Lancia, mostly there for dinos from what he said, but I mean, to a degree it can hit other things, like you can stop the invocation because it can't banish Alistair. You can stop the Chaos Engine and Dragon Link. Versus Virtual World, they can't banish their cards in the graveyard, meaning they can't shift around their levels. They can't, well, get anything banished, so the Chuchi can't return it to pop a card, meaning it's easier to deal with the VFD. And the King Long, they also can't banish it to get a free search. So Lancia actually pretty good there in that matchup as well. Goes a match, hits a lot of, like a lot of decks that need their different attributes. I mean, Virtual Worlds, if they stay in Archetype, they are wind, but if they try and actually like do anything, especially if you sit on it and let them get to something that's not a wind, and then you flip it on them, they're kind of just stuck in what they can do. Obviously dinosaurs, they're not all light. Conductor's light, Dolka's fire, and then I believe Oviraptor is dark. The babies are earth. So I mean, like, it can mess with them quite a bit too. A lot of Infernables are fire, but once they start going into like their I sold their Linkross, those cards, that's when you drop it on them. Invoke Dogmatica, they have All Mirage. As soon as they get like All Mirage, you just flip it, and now they can't really do much of anything. I mean, depending on their hand, but they're probably in a really bad situation there. So, and you're playing all light monsters, so it's not going to matter too much. The Sanctum Scythe, I mean, why not? You have a lot of big bodies in your main deck. You don't need your extra deck entirely, so I mean, not that it actually affects you whatsoever, so that's kind of a moot point, but your opponent's going to need their extra deck more often than not. Obviously, like dinosaurs being the main deck that wouldn't. So locking your opponent out of the extra deck is really stronging. Just ignore that first part I was saying. I was definitely thinking of a different card. 3 Forbidden Droplets. So he said this one was mainly there for like Calamities and Zexal, because you can, especially if you have another trap, and I mean, after siding, he could have a lot of trap cards. You can like send a trap and a monster, and now Calamities and Chuchi can't respond to it versus Virtual World, being the main thing with Calamities. And obviously the Zexal, you send a monster and then you just turn off Zexal, so it's pretty easy to do that way. Summon limit was putting in work, obviously, because you summon on your turn, and then you can also summon on your opponent's turn with like your purple, with your memories, with your secret, like you have secession. Like, you can summon on both players' turns and really build up an advantage where like combo decks need to summon and gain all their effects and do things that way. So one thing he did want to mention, I do have a note here that I missed, but it was with Nibiru and World Legacy Memory. So World Legacy Memory is a secret special summon 1 Mekk-Knight monster from your hand or deck, but return it to the hand during the end phase for the rest of this turn. Key thing is rest of this turn, not the whole turn. If it was the whole turn, this interaction would not work. See Nibiru and Orcus Crescendo, it's not legal. But for the rest of this turn, after it resolves, you cannot special summon monsters except Mekk-Knight monsters. So basically, your opponent summons 5 times, you activate Nibiru, and then you activate World Legacy Memory, And then Memories summons the monster. Now you're locked into Mekk-Knights. Nibiru tries to resolve as much as it can. It tributes absolutely everything, but it stays in your hand. So you get a free board wipe on your opponent, and you keep Nibiru in your hand for a following turn. Just one little thing he did want to throw out there. Well, that's pretty much it, guys. So let me know how you liked this type of video. Have you played in a big tournament and want to see your deck on the channel? Message me, we can try and work something out. I'll ask a few questions, kind of like I did with him, and get the gist of what you're going for, some pointers, some tips, things like that. If you disagreed with any of the points I brought up, or you have anything to add to it, feel free to let me know in the description below. Like I said, I'm by no means an expert on Mekk-Knights, but it was a lot of fun to, well, talk to him throughout the tournament and root him on and cheer for him to try and do well. So congratulations to him once again, and here's his deck list. Until next time, guys, take care.